good? Matt Clark here at the new Matt Clark. How are each and every one of you doing on this amazing Wednesday? I'm doing great. My girl's doing great. My family's doing great. I hope each and every one of you are doing great, even though life keeps going crazier and crazier and crazier. If you could please hit that like button, if you could please hit that subscribe button and that bell notification button to get all my videos when they're new. If you could share with somebody on social media, help spread the message, help spread the word, that would be amazing. And there's a PayPal option if you'd like to donate, help support the channel. The link is in the description of all my videos. So what's up, what's up, what's up? I feel like it's been a while since it's been just me and you guys. A video. Today I want to speak about recidivism. What is it that makes people go back to prison over and over and over? You know, multiple times in my life, people would say to me, "You must love it in prison. Do you love it there? It's like your second home. Why do you keep going back there?" And if you talk to people across all lifestyles, they'll say the exact same thing. If you keep going back to prison, you must love it there. And I think it's a much more complicated situation than that. I'm going to try to break it down in my own perspective of why, for me personally, I kept going through it. Now, at first, when I was young, 15 to 18, 19 years old, clearly, I was just a knucklehead. I wanted to get in trouble. It just was what it was. I wanted to hang around with the goons. I wanted to be thugged out. I wanted to cause as much trouble as possible. I wanted to run from the cops every time I saw them. I hated the feds. I hated the system. You know, I hated all that so much that my freedom meant nothing to me. Didn't matter what it was. I didn't even care if I was breaking the law. If I saw a cop, I was running. I was a heat bag like that. Now, I was always breaking the law. I was always on the run, so, you know, it's most of the time, if I was running, there's a reason why I was running. But I think later on, it became a lot deeper than that. I think that over the years, doing drugs really started to cover up some negative feelings that I had. Obviously, you guys know I went through trauma. I lost my brother, etc., etc. And that is traumatic to somebody who's never worked through any of that. Now, my parents clearly would try to send me to therapy and stuff like that all through my teenage years. They try to put me on Ritalin. They try to help in a lot of ways that didn't really help. But that didn't mean that they didn't try. It just means that I wasn't receptive at that time of my life. Because of the drugs and because of the lifestyle I was living, I had an issue with anybody in a position of authority, including a therapist. So, over the years, what happens? You get comfortable being in prison. It just becomes easy. When you're on the street, you want no responsibility. Responsibility actually becomes scarier and scarier the more time you do because you don't know how to be responsible. And you stop believing in yourself. You stop believing that you're capable of living a normal life. So you continue to break the law because you feel that's really the only way you're going to be able to provide yourself with any kind of a good life. Because legally, you don't have the skills to go out and get a six-figure job. I'm not working for minimum wage. Those are the things that run through your mind when you're in those circumstances. And I think a lot of people that are doing time, it's because they either can't hold a job, they don't want to have a job, because they've lived so long without it, they just can't see themselves working for such a small amount of money. And you, like I said, get caught on the hamster wheel because at some point you have to start at the bottom if it comes to employment. I was a runner. I was somebody who would run away anytime stuff got tough. It didn't matter if it was family relationships. It didn't matter if it was a, relationship with the girlfriend. It didn't matter if it was a job that was hard. It didn't matter if it was probation or parole. Anytime things got difficult for me, I ran. I didn't like it. I felt like I made my own rules. I got to decide what I went through in my life, and it doesn't matter who I affect in the process. And slowly over the years, I started to understand that my actions had reactions which affected many people around me, which then again made it easier for me just to be gone. For me just to not be a burden, not to be a problem in the people that love me's lives. Because when you're going through addiction and all that stuff, of course you love your family. But because you don't prioritize them, you prioritize your drugs over them, you assume that they don't prioritize you because there's a tension when you're on drugs if the people that are around you don't support you. It doesn't mean they don't love you. It doesn't mean they look down on you. It just means at some point they kind of have to turn their back on you and let you fend for yourself. But I didn't see it as that. I saw it as a personal attack to a victim. And for the longest time, I carried myself around this world like a victim, blaming everybody else for my problems. Anytime things got tough, this is the reason why, this is the reason why. Justifying breaking the law, justifying just being a shitty person. I didn't treat anybody in my life with respect, not a single person, except for my homeboys. I had my priorities totally backwards, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't respect your homeboys. That just means you have to prioritize in your life if you want to live a normal life. It's like, do you want to have a healthy relationship with your family? If that's something that you want, then you have to prioritize that. If you're going in and out of prison, how can you build that relationship? Division happens the more you go. The more times you go in, the longer you're gone, the older you get. Division happens. And this all leads to being comfortable in prison. Stunted mental growth is a huge problem for a lot of people doing time. Say you're 21 years old and you go and you do a bank robbery, you get 15 years. So you're going to do 10 years. That day you got arrested when you're 21. When you get out at 31, your mentality, your social dynamics, your personality is going to be stuck somewhere in between 21 and 31, but it's not going to be 31. It's going to be a whole lot closer to 21. And I explain that when I tell you, I see 65-year-old guys in the pen, like in the Medline or something, still doing fart jokes and doing things that really typically you only see guys that are, 17, 18, 19, 20 doing. And it's because they've been caught up in the system since they're young. It stunted their growth, and that basically forced them to continue doing what they're doing. I think a huge problem in our system is it doesn't teach you anything. It punishes you. There's no real rehabilitation on the inside. And until they do that, what you're going to have is a system that's so overwhelming for most guys who haven't really developed properly, or women, mentally, to be able to function in society like a normal person. And if they're not getting proper teaching, then they're just going to drift. It's going to get too difficult for them, and bit by bit by bit, they're going to get re-involved in the old life, and eventually they're going to give up. I know, because it happened to me time and time again. I didn't want to go to prison. I know a lot of people think, oh, you must love it there. Like I said, it's not true. Prison is a hateful place for anybody. You're lonely, even though you're surrounded by people. You just feel away from everything that matters. But when you're in the heat of the action, when you're living that lifestyle, something in your brain shuts off those consequences. It's like you know they're coming, but you don't really deal with it until it happens. It kind of, it's there, you know it's going to happen, you know eventually you're going to end up knocked. But until you're actually behind the bars, you're just like kind of going with the flow. And then you're locked up going, oh man, why did I do this? Because you're thinking about everything. Everything starts flashing before your eyes. I'm telling you, that first night in the police station is like a coming to grips with yourself. It's almost like grieving, because you're grieving your freedom. So you can go through many different emotional states when you're alone in that cell. And that's because deep down inside, you're coming to grips with the fact that you could be in for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And because of that, you go through this emotional up and down. All of these things together, stacked up against somebody who isn't taught how to live properly in society, because most people that are going to prison, there's a reason why they're going to prison. Prisoners are the most traumatized group of people in our society. So unless you get to the root issue, then you're not going to be able to stop the pattern. You have to be able to understand and recognize what it is that's causing somebody to behave this way. And if you just throw them behind bars every time and nobody really talks to them as an individual and learns what it is that's cranking their wheel, how can anybody change? That's why I have such a problem with our system. Sure, the Canadian system in terms of prison system is probably not the most uncomfortable system in the world. But it's really not designed on rehabilitation. It's designed on punishment and making people comfortable in prison so they have no problem going back. For years and years and years, I just accepted the fact that I was doing life on the installment plan because I felt there was no possible way for me to get out of it. And at times, I truly felt trapped, like trapped. You want to get out of it, but you feel like it's impossible. You feel like the obstacles they set up in front of you just make it impossible. So why even bother trying? And there's no uplifting. There's no motivational talk. Every paper, like every report or piece of paperwork you get in the system is just tearing you down. Tearing you down. How bad you were in society, how bad you were in the system. It doesn't really try to outline any ways to make things better. And it definitely doesn't provide any programming to do so. All the programs are very like basic. They're very group orientated. They're not individualized at all. There's no intimacy in the groups at all. There's no emotion really because guys are so standoffish. It's a penitentiary. Guys don't want to tell people what they're truly feeling emotionally. Maybe every once in a while you might get a group of 8 or 9 guys that believes their group and believes that it can help them, so they open up a little bit. But in most times, you just got a bunch of dudes effing around because they don't really want to be there. They're forced to be there. They're not ready for change, and that affects the people that are in the group that actually do want change. The system is backwards. I genuinely believe it is designed so that people go back. It's designed to create failure. Obviously, I share my stories with you guys so you guys don't have to go through these things yourselves. If I could snap my finger, nobody goes back to prison. Nobody's addicted to drugs. Nobody experiences trauma or PTSD. That's what I do. But in 2021, we know that's not a reality. We just know that. The world is kind of jacked up right now. If you could please hit that like button. If you could please hit that subscribe button and that bell notification button so you get all my videos when they're new. If you could share with somebody on social media, help spread the message, help spread the word. That'd be amazing. And there's a PayPal option if you'd like to donate, help support the channel. The link is in the description. So, you must love it in prison, right? You keep going back there. Wrong. It's not that. When you are raised up in that system, you're basically told you're a failure. Every report you get about yourself, every probation report, every pre-sentence report, every court report is telling you how bad and horrendous of a person you are, how high risk you are, and how unlikely it is that you're ever going to turn things around. At the same time, having really unrealistic expectations of what one person should have to do when on parole, while at the same time simultaneously trying to provide for themselves, trying to get a job, trying to have a relationship, trying to move on from the fact that maybe they don't want to be reminded every day that they're criminals. I don't know when things are going to change. I don't know who's going to change it, but there's lots of things that can be done better. There's a lot less people that could be in prison. There's a lot better programs that can be designed. There should be job programs for people that are getting out of prison. There should be trade programs on the inside of prison, which they've taken out. You want to make people better members of society? Well, tell them that you believe that they can. It's a tear down, build back up process. I kind of understand, but that's not prison. Prison is just tear down. This is one of the reasons why I tell you guys every time I do a video, Do not go to prison. It's not worth it. It's bad for the soul. It's bad for the spirit. And it's bad for the mind. It can stunt you. It can change your development. It can turn you into somebody that you never would have been if you didn't go to prison. Love each and every one of you. The new Mac.